We all have jobs, right? I mean, we need to take care of ourselves, pay our bills, take care of responsibilities. But as a parent, have you ever thought what the most important job is that you have? In this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I've learned as a single mother during my time, and some of the things that have allowed me to be the best parent that I can be. Some things that I did, some things that I didn't do. Hi, I'm Tyson-Sewell. I am an author, a social worker, a counselor, and I've worked with families and children for over 3 decades. And I had 3 at the same time. I almost feel like I had 3 kids at the same time, always, in my younger years. I really tried to see them as individuals instead of lumping them into one person, because I think a lot of times what happens is when you have more than one child and you're overwhelmed with the responsibility of taking care of these people, right? You're responsible, you're it. You can kind of lump them into one. You can literally see them as one thing, because you have to do all of these things for all of them. And it's really important for you to see them as individuals, to find ways to find their individuality and to find pockets of time that you get to spend with them individually. So I really tried very hard, even as a single mother to these 3 children, to find things that I could connect with each of them on, and share time and share space with them. So one of my sons liked to take the bus to school. That's great. So I got a chance to talk to the others in the car, on the way to school, or I'd pick up my daughter at a different time. And so I'd have time spending with her, or I might take her for ice cream on the weekend. And she and I would, when the boys were home, maybe playing on the game or something like that. And so she and I had those moments where I could really talk to her. They're my people. So I would say that's the first place you start. And then when you can start from that standpoint, then you've already kind of set yourself up to look at them in with a different eye. So I'd say just stop and just embrace them and just love them and say, okay, these are my kids. What do I do with this? And start paying attention to some things. But what I can say on this side of it is that when you put that work in, the rewards are there. It's tough at first, but then it becomes easy. I loved my kids to pieces. There is never a time that anything that I did in my life that I didn't think about how it was going to affect them. My kids were in the forefront of my mind at all times. From the time I woke up, I thought about these children. I thought about what I could do to ensure that their world is safe, what I could do to ensure that they're happy, that they're healthy, that they're thriving in their lives, that the people that I had in my life were positive people in their life. And if I had to make a decision about not having certain people in my life, I had to make that decision. So when I say I loved my kids to pieces, that's what I meant. I mean that, when you love someone, you're always thinking about what's the good for them. What is the best thing for them. And sometimes it means that you have to make sacrifices. Now, it doesn't mean that you forget about yourself in the process. Now, that's not what I'm saying either, because sometimes that happens, where we put our kids first and we forget about ourselves. And then they get raised and they're gone, leave you right there, forgot about yourself, and you don't know what's going on because you were living for them. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you have to find that balance, but loving your kids should encompass everything. How they're going to be whole and healthy human beings at all times. Stuff. So when I look at everything from my eye to there's that thing, now it's overwhelming. So I break it up. I break it up in pockets, and I try to solve problems. So if I'm looking at, I always say I have a problem plate. And I'll see what's on that plate, and then I'll cut it up and figure it out. So that's all I can say. So if I have a problem with, say, for instance, paying some bills or whatever, how am I going to get that done? Do I have the means? Do I need to get another job? Do I need to figure out another income, a way of income? So let's solve that problem. if there's a problem with the school, is somebody not behaving or somebody not doing what they're supposed to do? Okay, who do I need to meet with? Do I need to meet with a teacher? Do I need to sit down and talk with my child? Do I need to get my child a tutor? Do I need to get my child extra help? Now we got Google. We can always get more help without it costing us an arm and a leg. So I just think when you break it up in pieces and you start solving each piece, then you can get closer to balance, because balance is really, really important. But when you just think of everything that's a problem, it can really overwhelm you, and then you have nowhere to go. It's like you're in the middle of the ocean, and you start to sink. What are you going to do? You need to think about, okay, I need to calm down. I need to try to maybe float to the top and then wade my way in. Yeah. So I think about it as being calm in the middle of a storm and breaking it up and figuring it out piece by piece by piece, because you can't do anything if you're flustered, if you're always in a fluster. So how do I solve my messes? And sometimes that means I got to take some stuff off my plate and I got to go. I've been a social worker for long enough to have seen the beginning of a person's parenting journey, how it started, and then I saw it somewhere in the middle, and then I saw it somewhere, at that mark. So I might have had a client that was having a child or had a young child. Now that child's 30, and so I was able to see some really fundamental things that could have happened differently to have a different outcome. So, when I see little children that are overindulged or disrespectful, but I don't see the parent addressing it, I always try to talk with that person, because I kind of feel like I can see somewhere down the road where things will change. I see relationship issues where I'll see at the end where someone doesn't have a relationship with their children, but their story is that, I did everything for them and I was the best parent. And I know there has to be somewhere that things fell apart. Because at this point you should have a relationship with your children, but because the relationship wasn't being built. I had a lady tell me that, she provided a roof over their head. She provided food. She provided them with their needs, but she resented them the whole time. She's like, I was just pissed off with those kids. I just felt like they just ruined my life. I couldn't live my life. I couldn't do anything. You got to speak their language. Me, for instance, I remember growing up, and my brother, he would say stuff like, well, I'm going to get beat by going anyway. So he was just like, yeah, I'm gonna take my beating. And I've heard people say, I'm gonna take my spanking, I'm gonna take my beating. And I was like, I don't want nobody to beat me. No, I wouldn't even bother. Like always very, very worried about, getting in trouble about something. And someone else was like, yeah, that's okay. I'll just deal with the consequences at the end of it. So getting to know that. So in other words, in that instance, then you'd have to look at thinking, okay, well, that's not going to work on him. So what do I do to have something that's going to work with him? Because this one's scared of beating. So all I got to say is I can beat you, and she's not going to do it. But him, it doesn't matter. So I think like getting to know your children is really, really important, because that I might tell one that he can't ride his bike, but he loved inside playing the game. That'll never work. I'm saying I'm getting ice cream. I don't usually get them ice cream anyway. Or there's ice cream in the freezer. They're always getting ice cream. So it's like, I'm not going to get you ice cream from the ice cream truck. Like, you have to learn, like, what is it that's going to affect them? And, is it going to be important enough and motivating enough for them to not do something? That's important. I remember my daughter, when she was about 12 years old, there was a moment that we had, and I had to say to her, I asked her a question. She was in front of her friend, and I felt a lie coming, and I stopped everything, and I said, okay, just want to know, is this the moment that my daughter lies to me? And I literally was in the front of the car. I looked in the rearview mirror, and I was looking at her and her friend, and I said, I just want to know, is this the moment that my daughter lies to me? This is the first time my daughter's going to lie to me. Which day is it? April. But it was just this big dramatic thing, and I saw her eyes back there, and she goes, No, mommy. And she just told me the whole thing. And what she was saying, what to her friend was like, oh my gosh, why would you say that? And she's like, I'm not going to lie to my mother. And that was important to her. And so I think that's amazing, that someone had that conscience, and it was important enough to them that they did not want to cross a line of lying to my mother, because what that meant was so much bigger. And so that's amazing. I love that. I love telling that story because it's true. And I want a disclaimer. I've not been breaking down a church door, period, really. So I just want to say that, it's important for me to say that, because I'm not trying to paint some angelic, picture of this perfect person who's like, oh no. But faith, as in I'm walking by what I don't see, but what I know and what I trust. And I know that God's got me the whole time. I know He had me, and I know He had my kids. My story is crazy in it that it could have gone anywhere, based on the vulnerable person that I started out being so young, with 3 children, being responsible for them, being on my own, basically 26 years old with 3 little children. And I think about my story and what it is now, and I know that had it not been for God and my faith in God, I could not be where I am. I could not have come this far in this journey. And so faith really was that mustard seed faith, just knowing that, sometimes I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what was going to happen. But what I did know is that I just had to be still. In the moments when I was more uncertain, when I was more frightened or confused, I just took that. Be still and know that I'm God. And I walk by faith. And I always believe that. And so faith for me was everything. The mustard seed faith, and I would tell anyone that, like, just believe. When you start thinking that it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. You have to be positive, and you have to believe that it's already happened or it's going to happen. And if it's something that you want or something you need, just know that it can be yours. And if it's for you, it's understanding that sometimes God holds things from us, sometimes for our own good. And I joke and say, when God closes the door, stop trying to find a window. Some people say, when God closes the door, He opens the window. But sometimes when God closes the door, here you go trying to go through the window. Maybe you just need to stay away from the window. Maybe that's not for you. So I think faith is really, really important. And it was super important for me in my journey. That to me is more important than anything. So those are some of the things that I've done. And I will continue sharing with you some of the things that I've done on my journey, as well as talking to you about other things. But I'd love to know, what are some of the things that you think about? What are some of the things that you do or don't do, in the comments? So yeah, just please share that, your thoughts with me, and let's see what we can do together.